Today, let's use speed to help us into the handstand. Now, we can use this for handstand push-up variations. So this type of thing, so going up and down, using momentum. We can use that for press variations, so we can jump into handstand. Now, the downside of using jumps or using speed is time and attention. We're missing gaps or areas of the skill that could be our blocks or our weak areas where going too fast isn't going to fill those gaps. So we always have those gaps. So that's going to be an issue then if I want to do that exact same skill and I don't have the ability to push out of it or press out of it because I'm missing something else there. So managing the way you use speed to help you in your training is very important. And the most simplistic way of dealing with that would be to use speed on the way up, but then on the way down do exactly the same movement, but as slow as possible using whatever technique. So that one, I've got good balance, so I could go really slowly on the down. But if my balance isn't fantastic, I might need to use the wall like this. So exactly the same on the way up, but on the way down, I'm going to come into the wall and use that to slow everything down. So that way I'm getting the concentric pattern, but I'm also getting that time under tension through, again, the correct pathway. That's the tricky bit, is to mimic exactly the same pathway on that slow eccentric as that you want on the slow concentric eventually. So let's first look at some techniques on how we can use that speed to help us up. Probably the easiest movement to focus on is a crow to handstand. So it's bent arm strength. It bends the arms, the hips come up and the legs come up on top of the base, and then I push up to my handstand. So that was obviously relatively slow. I can do the skill quite well, so I can go very slowly up and down. But if you can't go up slowly, we might need to use some speed to help us. Now, one of the challenging things here is there's a little bit of a change of direction. So if we look simplistically at it, is that I'm going this way, and then I need to go up to handstand. So it's like I change direction. So the energy's going this way and then this way. So how do we deal with that? We deal with that initially through the seesaw. So the seesaw, as the head and shoulders come down, the hips come up, and we roll into the handstand. So it's less this, and it's more roll. So if we go slowly again to start with, watch what happens. The head and shoulders come down, the hips and feet come up, and then I roll and push at the same time. So my energy is this, not this. So you can practice initially the start, the transition, which is probably the hardest part. This bit really slowly, come down, even take head to floor and come back again. Then we can add a little bit more speed. And notice what I'm doing there as I use the speed is I'm adding in a bit of a push. Now you actually might find it easier not to go forwards and then up. You might find it easier to be in the frog or crow position first like this, and then just whip, take the head and shoulders down, feet up, and do it that way. So you're sort of doing this movement only and not doing this and then up. But it just depends. Have a play with it, see what you can do. There is a lot of strength to a point. You need to make sure that you have this type of thing pretty comfortable. See here that I can do this bent arm hold in that bottom position, because that's where you need to change direction and go. You might not be able to hold that for time like I can. So I can hold this really well because my balance is really good, but you might not be able to do that. But what you should be able to do is hold that with a foot on the wall maybe. So into this position and be able to hold that comfortably there for like 5 seconds. That should be enough to help have that strong base to use as you go up. But basically just play with that, see if you can get the knees to float up, and then use momentum to do it. Now, the other movement we can play with is some sort of press handstand, which is going to start a bit more upright, something like this, but it could be more muscled, or it could be like a hybrid between the crow and the frog entry and a press handstand, which would look a bit like that. And there's even like, I use a little bit of a jump there or push off the feet. So you can create the momentum however you want to or however you need to, but remember, we're going to try and fill those gaps with those eccentrics as much as possible. But the press handstand version is going to be either forwards, then up, like so, or it could be more down, like in a squatty position like this, and then get the momentum up like that, which is going to be a bit more jumpy. You can also go for something like a pike entry, which again can be done with bent arms or straight arms. Now the pike entry is going to have a lot more flick from the hip, meaning as the hip opens, we add that push in. So come to here, pike up, push, like so. So you can either do that had a slight bend in the arms, or you're going to do it straight arm version, which is just going to be a little bit more like a jump. So here, and then whip it up like so. Now, all of these methods to get into handstand, if we are using speed, are going to be a little bit harder to catch at the top if we have excess speed. And what that normally means is that it's going to fire you off in this direction. So the overbalance you're going to have to deal with. So you need to be careful if Rosie's there, that when I come up to the top, that I don't fall over like so. Easiest way to deal with that would be to do it back to wall. So once you get to the top, you have that to hit, or that as a boundary. But if you do have a little bit more control, what you can do at the top is you can use speed but stop yourself in that slight underbalanced position. So that would look like that, and then I push out at the top. So that one I caught with bent arms at the top and then finish the movement. The other way to do it would be to come up, straight arms, catch, and then open it up at the top. So you're basically just putting a little bit of a stopper on in a position that's easier to control. Once you're fully extended, it's much harder to deal with the over excess energy at the top when you're in a slightly underbalanced position, because it's like you have a bit of suspension. But if you're maxed out on your height, it's much harder to deal with from a balance point of view. Now you can basically do this idea with every entry up. So I could do it from this type of movement using lots of speed. And look, I cheated there at the top because I used the feet on the top. But that's actually another cool way, if you have this type of setup, to handle the momentum at the top. If your balance isn't fantastic, I could stop there and then I can try and balance off the top of the ceiling. So let's mimic that again. So if I'm here, I could hold here, show control, take the feet off, and then slowly come through that movement back down again. So again, trying to fill the gaps as best you can. So I get to the top, I haven't landed in a perfect position or perfect balance position, step lightly off the wall, pull slightly off the ceiling, or push out of that slight underbalance position to find my balance, and then finish with that slow eccentric of the skill that I'm aiming for. Using the wall if I need to, or if I've got it, do it freestanding. It also works with your pulling skills. So I could do something like a front lever pull. Maybe I don't have the strength to pull up in a half lay. So half lay is open hip, bent knees. But I could use momentum to get up. So like that. And then once I'm here, try and work on a real slow lower through that front lever pull. So fast up, slow down. So whatever the skills you're working towards, try speed first. See how you go with that. And this doesn't have to be for one repetition of a movement. It could be for multiple reps, or even as you get tired, you could use this technique. So if I do something like handstand push-ups, so starting in the handstand, I do a slowish, controlled eccentric, then use speed to get up out of it, and then exactly the same on the way back down. Speed to get back out, slowly down, speed to get back up, and just keep doing that for repetitions to get me way more reps. Now this is a little bit tricky from a balance point of view, but you can see I can get multiple reps now because I'm using that quick concentric to get me back up now. It's slowing down because I've lost strength. But you get the idea. It's hard to manage, but you can definitely increase some reps. You can definitely unlock some skills or allow you to do some concentrics that you wouldn't normally be able to do. But do make sure that you're getting those slow, controlled eccentrics, or fill in the gaps with other exercises. If you need more help with your training, I have lots of options. I've got hundreds of free videos. I have my members follow along videos, like recorded classes that are also all available in the app, as well as programs for everything that I train. And I also have the full online coaching. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'll speak to you guys in the next one.